Madam Deputy President. Well, I'm not sure how much it takes to invigorate Senator Scarr, but I can tell you the morning note, I think this is called, so it probably changes once we hit afternoon, just like most of the things that this government says, is not invigorating Australians, because the government may talk a big game on the economy, but what we've seen today with their answers and the contributions thus far in this debate, and what is actually in their misplaced talking points, is with the Deloitte report and their inaction on banks, is that their talk doesn't reflect reality, and that's the point. That's the point in the discussion and the discussion around the comments by Deloitte. What's in these speaking notes does not reflect reality. It doesn't reflect the reality for Australians in regional areas struggling to get a job, for workers and families dealing with stagnant wages and rising costs of living, for small businesses that have been promised so much by this government, who claim to have their interests at heart, despite the actions showing the complete opposite. And as we've heard this morning, the latest Deloitte Access Economics Business Outlook is forecasting below trend growth this financial year, growth of just 2.2%, well below the government's forecast. Most damningly, Madam Deputy President, the report states, and I quote, "The pain in our economy has been homegrown." It also says that we're unlikely to see wages accelerate or to see unemployment fall much over the coming year. This is terrible news for Australian workers and job seekers. Madam Deputy President, the government has failed to provide confidence to the Senate today in the answers that we received, and indeed I expect to Australian business and workers that it has the foresight, the capacity or ability to lift growth, create jobs and boost wages. Indeed, the Deloitte report went on to say and makes it clear that the RBA has been doing all the heavy lifting, with dwindling capacity to move if it wishes to keep some flexibility in the system for monetary policy to deal with global shock. It's time for the government to do its part and use the levers available to it to support Australian businesses, jobs and workers and get this economy moving. Yet all we see from this government are talking points in an attempt to paint a picture so far from reality it reminds me of a song from the Rocky Horror Picture Show. "Rose tints my world and keeps me safe from my trouble and pain." Well, the rosy picture painted in the government's talking points may try and keep them out of trouble, but it does nothing to alleviate the pain experienced by Australians facing rising costs and dwindling pay. It's time the Australian people got some honesty from this government. It's time the Prime Minister and the Treasurer issued a budget update that reflects reality with updated forecasts. And this country is crying out for an economic plan that will reverse the collapsing confidence and finally spur along overdue wages growth. Instead, all we see is relentless wedge politics, blame shifting and, embarrassingly, rosy talking points. And let's make sure we never forget just how hard so many Australians are doing. This week is Anti-Poverty Week. There are 3 million Australians, including 739,000 children, living below the poverty line, living on less than 50% of the median income. That's 13.2% of Australians, or 1 in 6 Australian children. Where is the government's plan to tackle poverty and boost incomes? All of this comes from what we see, from seeing record household debt, stagnant wages and banks that are refusing to pass on cuts to interest rates. If there's one thing that Australian people know about this Liberal government, is that they simply can't be trusted when it comes to standing up to the banks. This is a government that's had 12 months to consider a Productivity Commission report on the failures of the banking competition, and this government
Thank you,
has
Senator
done
Brown. Your
nothing.
time has expired.